When you want to understand how a $42 billion design empire is actually built, you don't look at Silicon Valley first. You look at a 19-year-old girl in Perth, Australia. What if I told you that to create one of the most valuable software companies in the world, you don't start by building for the experts or the innovators. You start by building for the people who are terrified of the complexity. This journey didn't start with a desire to build a software company. It started when Melanie Perkins was teaching design and realized her students were spending 80% of their time fighting the tools and only 20% actually being creative. She spotted what I call a complexity tax. While the rest of the industry was busy making professional tools more complicated, she decided to make complex tasks invisible. Melanie Perkins understood the path of strategic patience, a safe space to fail and fail again. She didn't just wake up and launch Canva. She started with Fusion Books, a tiny niche business for high school yearbooks. It was her laboratory. She spent years testing her hypothesis in a small, safe environment. When she finally went for funding, she got rejected 100 times. Here, Melanie's founder mentality didn't see a no as a failure of her idea. She saw it as a signal that the architectural moment wasn't ready. She even delayed her main product for 2 years, just to rewrite the codebase. She knew that if the foundation wasn't global ready, the skyscraper would eventually lean. She wasn't just shipping an app. She was building the creative operating system for the 99%. Let's get into the smart stuff, the blue ocean strategy. Most companies fight in red oceans. They look at their competitor and say, they have 10 features, so we need 11. That's a race to the bottom. Canva did the opposite. They used a framework called value innovation. They targeted the people who weren't using design software, the social media managers, the teachers, the small business owners who were too intimidated by Photoshop. When you look at their ERRC grid, it's a masterclass in focus. They eliminated the professional training requirement. They reduced the number of tools to only the essentials. They raised the speed to value, and they created a template ecosystem. In 2012, when Melanie finally launches Canva, everyone frames it as startup takes on Adobe, the little challenging the giant. That framing is wrong, and understanding why it's wrong is the entire lesson of this video. Adobe in 2012 had around 58% of the creative software market. Photoshop alone had 40% of professional raster editing. These are enormous numbers. Adobe is entrenched, profitable, and deeply embedded into every creative agency and design studio on the planet. But Melanie Perkins was not building for creative agencies. She was not building for design studios. She was not building for the people already inside Adobe's world. She was building for everyone else. The social media manager at a small company who needed a graphic by 3 p.m. and had no designer. The school teacher who needed a presentation that didn't look embarrassing. The entrepreneur who had a great product and a terrible-looking brand. The non-profit volunteer who needed a fundraising flyer and zero budget. Every market has what I call a complexity tax. It's the invisible cost in time, money, and frustration that people pay just to participate. And in most markets, the complexity tax is so high that a massive portion of potential customers have simply walked away. Adobe's complexity tax was enormous. Years of training, expensive software licenses, a high-spec machine to run it, a dedicated professional to operate it. Most small businesses couldn't afford any of that. These people were not almost Adobe users who just needed a cheaper option. They had already made a decision. Design is not for me. I don't have the time, the money, or the patience to learn this. They're nobody's customer. They gave up. Canva's target customer was not Adobe's unhappy customer. It was Adobe's invisible customer, the person who had already left the room before the game even started. So, what did Melanie Perkins do? She didn't try to lower Adobe's complexity. She built a world where complexity didn't exist. No installation, no learning curve, a template library so good that you could look professional before you even understood what you were doing. and a platform so fast that you could go from creating an account to a finished design in under 2 minutes. She didn't compete on price. She didn't compete on features. She competed on the question itself. And she changed it from which design software should I buy to why would I ever need to buy design software at all. Melanie didn't find a gap in the market. She found a market in the gap. Now, let's break down the scalability part. Here is where it gets interesting for those of us looking at the shaping phase of a business. Initially, Canva was visionary by eliminating the complexity and creating a new world easy to access for designing. They had a clear, predictable vision of a browser-based future. But today, they are what we call a shaping orchestrator. As of early 2026, Canva has surged to 260 million monthly active users. They generated $3.5 billion in revenue in 2025. 95% of the Fortune 500 companies use Canva. The Canva application is now a global phenomenon that reaches users in more than 190 countries, meaning it is present in almost 95% of the world. Its mobile app is also a huge hit, boasting over 500 million downloads. The biggest markets are India, Indonesia, and Brazil. Canva user demographic are in across age groups. But that's not the number I want you to sit with. Here's the one that tells the real story. 59% of Canva's monthly active users are in non-English speaking markets, more than half. Countries where English isn't spoken at home. Markets that traditional software companies treat as secondary. Emerging economies, regional businesses, local creators. Canva didn't just capture a market. It found markets that the entire industry had decided weren't worth serving. And it served them anyway. And to do that, they made a decision that almost no growth stage startup would make. In the middle of their expansion, at the moment when every investor is screaming, ship faster, grow faster, they stopped. They spent 2 full years rebuilding their entire technical infrastructure from scratch. Not to add new features, to make the platform work properly in Arabic, in Urdu, in Hebrew, in every language that reads right to left that most software companies just skip. 2 years, zero visible progress, maximum internal pressure. That is what strategic patience looks like. And it is the reason that today, while their competitors are fighting over English-speaking markets, Canva owns the world. Think about this. They have a $50 million developers fund. They aren't just making a tool, they are inviting the world to build on top of them. They've localized into 100 languages one after another, not just translating, but re-engineering their code for right-to-left scripts like Arabic and Hebrew. They are acting faster. Today, when generative AI is reshaping everything, Canva is adapting again. Magic Studio, AI-generated designs, real-time localization at scale. They are not waiting to see how AI disrupts design. They are embracing it in their favor. They realize that global dominance isn't about having the best code. It's about eliminating the friction of distance. So, what's the takeaway? Complexity is a liability. In a world of infinite choice, the simplest interface wins. If your customer has to think, you've already lost them. Scalability over margin. Don't just chase a high profit margin on a small group. Build for the invisible 99%. Massive scale creates an identity that a high price point never can. The two-step vision. Step 1. Build something indispensable. Step 2. Use that value to do the most good. That's not just a mission statement, it's a long-term retention strategy. Melanie and her team never stopped dreaming, but they didn't just dream, they architected. At Canva, they have what they call a two-step plan. It's elegantly simple. Build one of the world's most valuable companies, and second, do the most good we can. So, next time you're looking at your own business strategy, don't just ask if it's profitable. Ask if it's brave. Are you fighting for scraps in a red ocean, or are you courageous enough to build a blue one? Because as Melanie showed us, the only dreams worth having are the ones that people call crazy until they become indispensable.